Knight from michelleknight.com and knightstemple.com, and I am here with the fabulous Ruth Ann and Wald Amberstone from tarotschool.com. If you haven't been there, go there now. It's mind-blowing. I'm delighted to be here in New York interviewing you, and we're going to talk about this amazing thing you do, and is on your site, which is birth cards.
Mm-hmm. Yep, birth cards are tarot cards that are sort of like sun signs in a way. You take your birth date and there's a numerological reduction. We have a particular formula that we like to use, which is on the site, and there's also a little calculator that you can figure it out too. And the numbers of your birth date will reduce to tarot cards from the major arcana, and most people have two of them. And Michelle, you have the Lovers and the Devil, which makes so much sense for you.
It does.
So mine are the Moon and the Hermit. And
mine are Justice and Priestess.
Wow.
Yeah. So we're very different, but the energies are very complementary. And
tell us a bit about what those cards mean for any of the three of us in terms of our path.
Funny. I don't know whether I should tell you what those cards mean in birth card terms, or whether I should give you a little idea of what you can get from your birth cards in general. I think it would be more useful in this little bit of time to say that and what they're about. And from a certain point of view, you could say that when you were born, the day of your birth, in these terms, in birth card terms, give you a pair of cards which are like the two sides of a doorway. And between the two sides of the doorway, you enter this life. And it's just like that, like a portal. And everything that happens to you in the course of your life will be colored, will be not determined, but will be described by the qualities of the two sides of this doorway. It's like two pillars, like the two pillars in the Justice or the Priestess card. It's a portal to walk through. And if you have a certain set of birth cards, then you are going to likely be seeing and experiencing the world inside of the combination of those two. You could think of the two birth cards as the two banks of a river between which the river of your life flows. And you probably know that there are a lot of great rivers in the world. And you know that if you were born on the Nile, you would experience Africa. If you were born on the Mississippi, you would experience America. And the two qualities are vastly different. So each set of birth cards is like that. Each set is like a great river that includes a whole series of energetic environments.
one way that I like to look at it is that it's the lens through which you see the world and experience it. So if you were to meet somebody who shared your birth cards, you would know right away that there would be certain things that you would experience similarly. You may not have the same kind of life, you probably have many differences in personality, but you'll have a basic understanding with this person that would be a little easier than with somebody who did not share your birth cards. The other thing that's really important, I feel, about this work is that it takes the blame out of interpersonal relationships. When you understand that somebody else is not really a jerk, they're just seeing things through their particular set of glasses and they're reacting and experiencing things differently in a way that you don't understand. Once you know a little bit more about how things work for them, this works really well with family situations a lot. You know, when you find out what your parents' birth cards were and you see their interactions and you can sort of say, oh, okay, now I understand why they are doing that and why my relationship is easy or difficult with them. And that works for coworkers, for children, for intimate relationships, all kinds of relationships.
One of the things that we found, which is really interesting from a predictive point of view, is that when a mother has a child, when a child is born, since the child is born at a particular day, the child has birth cards from the moment they enter the world. And the mother, of course, if she knows her own birth cards, will be able to look at the relationship between her and her child, even though her child is only just taking its first breath, and will know to a certain extent what kind of relationship she is going to have with her child for the rest of her life.
But it also makes it easier to, knowing that my daughter has a certain set of birth cards, I know what will work for her, what will make her happy, what will distract her.
Can you give us an example of that?
Well, one example. one of her, as I mentioned before, she has the Sun, the Wheel of Fortune, and the Magician. And the Magician is really very intent on getting their way and having their will and making things happen. And there's a certain amount of fearlessness there, which as a moon hermit, well, the moon especially tends to be very fearful sometimes. So I understand that she has strengths and capabilities that I would not necessarily see for myself. That she's not afraid of things, that she'll take chances, that she has a level of confidence that is natural to her. And so I would not stand in the way of that, and I will honor that energy. There was one incident where a grandparent thought that, well, she lives in New York City, she doesn't need a car. Well, as a Wheel of Fortune birth card, part of her formula, I knew that her car and the idea of mobility was extraordinarily important to her. And you could take away all kinds of things, but don't take away my car. So, you know, things like that. In terms of moon hermits, I tell parents who have a moon hermit baby that if they have any kind of anxiety, knowing what the next step in a process is very soothing. It really helps. Both of them, the moon has the path that you travel, the hermit has to climb up the mountain. All of these have to be done step by step. And so being able to see ahead to what comes next, even if you don't see the big picture, can be really helpful. And if you know these things about your child, your friend, your lover, it just makes negotiating a lot easier.
One of the aspects of justice, as a birth card, is that justice is very demanding. Justice requires that there be no exaggeration, nothing understated, nothing overstated. So when Ruth Ann and I have our moments of difficulty, it's because she tends to exaggerate given the moon. She'll tend to exaggerate certain things emotionally. She's a very emotional person. There are other reasons for the emotionality than the moon, but the moon part of it tends to exaggerate the fearful and sometimes the disastrous, and it tends to see the possibilities for the worst in things occasionally. It isn't always like that, but a lot of times it is, and justice is very impatient with that. And so whenever that happens, whenever Ruth Ann is feeling fearful or anxious, and it gets too far, instead of being supportive, I get annoyed.
Sometimes, but the flip side
We've gotten better at that.
The flip side of that is that the priestess is all-encompassing and extremely accepting, and you know, the moon just laps
out of
at
all
him.
the possibilities.
Yeah.
When you compare a moon hermit and a justice priestess, and you put them together in a certain way, you can see the relationships of the energies between the four cards that make up that combination. And 3 out of the 4 combinations that make up the 4 of our 2 sets of birth cards work together really, really well. Only justice and moon have a problem. We call those our justice moon moments. And then they're predictable. They come up periodically. They're always there. But there would have, if we didn't know this about each other, I would simply be perpetually annoyed, and Ruth Ann would be perpetually aggravated, and we would never be able to get past it, and each one of us would think it was a failure or a flaw in the other person that they didn't understand. But we know now it's not because we don't understand, it's because we are the way we are.
So it's a great tool for compatibility and to improve relationships.
It truly is.
Yes, communication.
Fantastic.
Absolutely.
And everybody can go to tarotschool.com and sort out who they are, what they are.
We actually have all the notes for birth card combinations on our website, so you can calculate yours and people that you know, and then you can read up about them.
Wow. Thank you so much. I'm rushing there now. Thanks a lot. Speak to you in a minute about another fabulous tarot topic.